What is good, YouTube? Warstu here with a video on the Venom 2 plot leak, which is coming from one of the most reliable sources that we have ever had here on this channel, the Venom 2 post-credit scene, as well as a major storyline that's coming up in Spider-Man 3, and also an update on what's going on with the reshoots for Venom. Obviously, they're standard with any given Hollywood movie, so if you are new around here, make sure to subscribe to never miss any of the videos. At the 100,000 subscriber mark, I will be giving away something pretty darn cool. So what is interesting is this Venom 2 movie, it is said that the violence is like the decapitation in EndGame, in Infinity War of Thanos, you know, when Thanos' head goes flying. It's meant to be one of the most savage Marvel-based movies that there has ever been, which is pretty darn cool. So one of the post-credit scenes is linked to Spider-Man 3. We'll go over that towards the end. And one of the post-credit scenes is also linked to Morbuis, but that's kind of obvious. Carnage will have some solo scenes where he's seen throw in rubbish and mess around, which does actually line up with a clip that I'm most likely going to insert here if I can find it. So what is interesting is there will also be a scene where Mr. Cassidy actually kills Eddie Brock without the symbiote, but Venom arrives just in time to save the day. It will be something like the scene where Riot stabs Eddie in Venom 1 and he didn't die. So also there is going to be a very small cameo role from the Jackal. He will make a cameo role and be a small threat in this movie. He's going to be Venom's first enemy in this movie, just like Rhino in Spider-Man 2. Obviously, we were on about the Sony-verse, not the MCU. So, if you listen to this, you're probably not a comic book fan. So, essentially, the Jackal is an enemy of Spider-Man who played a big role in both of the clone sagas. He is seen seamlessly returning to Manifest Manhattan with spider powers for its own sinister end, organizing test subject into a Spidey-powered army, and he is pretty well known. His other aliases are the Professor and Dr. Miles Warren. So the Jackal cameo role will be pretty interesting in this movie. Annie, aka She-Hulk, is actually going to help in the final fight against Carnage, but she won't be able to help much. So it also goes on to say there is a surprise person who helps. So allegedly the fight is going to be very long, a big battle with Venom, She-Venom, and a surprise character. So the Carnage design, no one's actually seen it at the moment, but apparently it is something like the Carnage character in the Marvel video game, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2, which is interesting. Carnage will start to take control of Cassidy as the movie advances. So that's the main plot from what I was told from a reliable inside source, which is very interesting. As we know, reshoots can change stuff. As we know, this movie was actually supposed to come out this year, but it's being pushed back to next year, so things may change. So apparently what the post-credit scene for this movie is going to be, it's going to essentially be Tom Hardy, Eddie Brock, aka Venom, meeting Spider-Man in some capacity. It doesn't go in to say in what depth, because I presume the post-credit scene hasn't been done yet. But this is coming from a very reliable source, so there's no reason for me. This isn't a Reddit post. This is from a reliable source, so there's no reason for me not to believe this. And the Morbius one, it doesn't go into any more detail, just says that there's a scene linked to Morbius. So something that is pretty darn cool is that J. Jonah Jameson has essentially confirmed that he could be behind a lot of things. So recently he spoke to SiriusXM, the chess show, And he revealed that he has already filmed another scene as JJJ, and there are more planned later. He said this: well, yeah, I'll be back as Jemison. That's the short answer. There is a future for JJJ after a several-year hiatus. He showed up very briefly for those who were wise enough to stay through the end credits of Far From Home. There is one more JJJ appearance in the can, and from what I'm hearing, there's a plan for yet another one. So everyone seems to think that this is going to take place in Morbuis and in Venom. But why this is interesting is because there's an ongoing theory in the community, in the world, that JJJ is going to somehow be linked and maybe even be a part of the Sinister Six, which sounds pretty damn nuts. But if they are to incorporate the Spider-Man PS4 version, or any version, he pretty much hates Spider-Man, so to work against Spider-Man would be a very interesting and different take to actually physically work with the Sinister Six. Now we know the Sinister Six is also something that's supposed to be teased in and set up during Morbius. Now Michael Keaton, who is now apparently the DCU Batman, somehow, we don't know how, but as we know, Michael Keaton's character Toomes, aka Vulture, showed up in the Morbius trailer right at the end. And we know that the multiverse is great. We know that apparently Spider-Man is the only character in the MCU that can go one to the other. But maybe not. But I guess you're going to say, but Vulture is in Spider-Man 3. Is he? He could be. So essentially Vulture was in Spider-Man Far From Home, which is an MCU movie, and now he's showing up in a Sony-verse movie. So I'm thinking that literally anyone in a Spider-Man based character role can go over. That's why the precedence that Venom will show up in Spider-Man movies at some time is realistically going to happen. Because at the end of the day, Kevin Feige or whoever runs Marvel, I don't even believe it's Feige. I believe it's Bob Iger personally. I think he's running the show. Whatever they want, they've got to keep Sony happy if they want Sony to allow Spider-Man to stay in the MCU. It's a pretty interesting hot take, and I really can get behind that hot take. I think Morbius, Venom 2, Spider-Man 3 is really going to change the game. And then you have to factor in the fact that Sammy Raimi is basically confirmed to be directing Doctor Strange 2, where a lot of people seem to think Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Spider-Man Tom Holland are all going to appear in some sequence to set up the multiverse. Because, as we know, the multiverse was introduced in the first Doctor Strange movie, although a lot of the general audience, which essentially is casual fans, no offense. So it is interesting that the multiverse has been in the MCU ever since Doctor Strange 1, although until the quantum realm factor in EndGame, no one really understood it. So the MCU, in collaboration with the Sonyverse, could really take off when you consider Venom could come over to the MCU, then the multiverse opens up, so we get Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, and that is before they properly introduce the Oscorp Tower. Because as we know, the Avengers Tower has been sold. We don't know who the owner is. Everyone thinks it's Mr. Fantastic, or the most recent rumor, which we all know, that Oscorp was supposed to be teased in Spider-Man Far From Home, but because the Spider-Man deal was up in the air, they pulled the scene. There was literally a scene that teased the Oscorp Tower is there, so maybe JJJ has something to do with it. Spider-Man 3 is going to be very interesting when we do get to see it. As we know, literally every Marvel movie is being delayed and cancelled. Mulan, the most recent Disney movie, is also being cancelled again, so I am pretty sure that every Marvel movie will be delayed again and again and again. So it's going to be very interesting. Like I said, guys, I'm trying to do as many Marvel videos as I can, but at the moment, Marvel is a dead category. It's dead. It really is dead. So recently, there's been some information about, obviously, reshoots and stuff like that, because as we know, even before this thing that happened in the world, every movie gets reshoots. So they discussed the reshoots are going to happen as soon as they can, because everyone needs to be safe. But there is a lot of time before this movie actually comes out. So reshoots aren't really that important when it comes to this movie. But it could change a bunch of stuff, because usually Marvel doesn't retest during stuff. But essentially what was said with the Venom reshoots is nobody wants to go into an environment that is going to be risky and that goes for a few crew members. It's not just for the talent, it's everybody involved on set. There's a nervousness, and that's natural, understandable in the plans that we've discussed. They've certainly taken this into consideration and into account. Director Andy Serkis, who marks his third directorate feature, will be in Venom. Let there be carnage. Has been working remotely in post-production, but the rest of the cast and crew still need to get together to finish the film. But as Hollywood discusses, obviously precautions and guidelines. Essentially, it just still says the movie will be coming out June the 25th, 2021, which is all good stuff. The interview was on Vanity Fair from producer Dan Wilson, who confirmed the current status of the movie, which was one of the few lucky movies to wrap before this all happened, but they still need to do reshoots, which is a standard thing for movies. So like always, guys, let me know what you think of the Venom leak, the Venom post-credit scene, and also what happens in Venom. I believe it's pretty reliable, but like all these kind of things, you have to take it with a pinch of salt, and you have to take the risk to cover stories. Sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, but it's going to be pretty mad when all the Spider-Mans get reintroduced. There's a reason why Sammy Raimi is directing Doctor Strange 2, and we know it's going to be multiverse heavy. So like always, guys, please like, subscribe, and comment. I'll catch you in the next video very soon. Catch you later.